Nobody was ready for what Tamar Braxton just unleashed. What started as a late-night rant turned into a full-blown family earthquake that has fans questioning everything they thought they knew about the Braxton legacy. Because this time, Tamar didn't come for outsiders. She came for her own blood. And when she said certain names out loud, the internet froze. In a voice shaking with rage, heartbreak, and exhaustion, Tamar hinted that there's been a dirty, hidden alliance operating behind the scenes for years. One that she claims involved Towanda and Michael Braxton moving in lockstep while she was being pushed out, silenced, and painted as the problem. According to Tamar, this wasn't love or protection. This was strategy. This was manipulation. This was family business handled in the shadows while she took the public blame. Fans immediately caught onto her wording. She didn't say argument. She didn't say misunderstanding. She said relationship, the kind that makes your stomach turn when you realize loyalty was never equally distributed. Tamar implied deals were made without her, narratives were shaped against her, and decisions about her life were discussed behind closed doors while cameras kept rolling. Within minutes, clips went viral. Old interviews resurfaced. Awkward moments suddenly made sense. And one question exploded across social media. Was Tamar set up from inside her own family? Because if even half of what she's hinting at is true, this isn't just drama. This is betrayal at the deepest level. And Tamar looks like she's done protecting anyone. The moment Tamar hit go live, everything shifted. You could hear it in her breath before she even spoke, that heavy pause like someone standing at the edge of a cliff deciding whether to jump. Her eyes weren't playful, her tone wasn't sarcastic, and this wasn't one of those messy, half-joking Braxton blow-ups fans had grown used to. This was different. This felt deliberate. Tamar didn't start with names. She started with pain. She talked about being iced out, about being blamed for fractures she claims she didn't create, about watching people she trusted move in silence while she was left to carry the chaos out loud. And then she dropped the line that set the internet on fire, saying there was a relationship inside the family that never wanted her to win. The word choice alone sent shockwaves. Not alliance, not agreement, relationship. Something ongoing, something coordinated. Tamar claimed there were conversations happening without her, decisions being made about her image, her career, even her mental health, while she was positioned as unstable and difficult for the cameras and the public. She said every time she spoke up, the narrative flipped against her, and now she was realizing it wasn't accidental. According to Tamar, there was a pattern, and the pattern always ended with her isolated while others stood united. Fans immediately began dissecting the footage frame by frame. Tamar wasn't yelling. She wasn't spiraling. She was calm in that terrifying way people get when they've finally stopped hoping things will change. She said she'd been protecting family secrets for years, biting her tongue while watching the same people smile for photos and interviews. She implied that Towanda and Michael were far closer behind the scenes than anyone realized, presenting a united front that quietly undermined her whenever tensions rose. Tamar suggested that when conflict happened, they didn't ask what was true. They decided what was convenient. Social media erupted within minutes. Clips from Braxton family values resurfaced with new meaning. Fans started pointing out old scenes where Tamar was painted as explosive while Towanda sat back silent, or where Michael played mediator on camera but allegedly took sides off-screen. Viewers noticed moments where Tamar was excluded from decisions, trips, or conversations, moments that once seemed minor but now felt intentional. The timeline began to form, and it wasn't flattering. Tamar hinted that the real betrayal wasn't arguments or disagreements, but loyalty being selectively applied. She said she watched Towanda and Michael protect each other at all costs, even when it meant letting her take the fall publicly. She claimed that when things went left, there was always a unified story that didn't include her truth. According to Tamar, she became the family's convenient lightning rod, absorbing criticism while others stayed clean. Then came the line that made everyone stop breathing. Tamar implied that Ashlee's situation wasn't just misunderstood, but intentionally misrepresented. She didn't spell it out directly, but her implication was clear enough to set blogs on fire. She suggested that family roles were rearranged behind the scenes, truths blurred, and narratives protected in ways that benefited some and erased others. Tamar said when she tried to question it, she was told to calm down, to stop being dramatic, to let it go. But she never could because she says she knew something wasn't right. The comments section turned into chaos. Some fans rallied behind Tamar instantly, saying they always felt she was scapegoated. Others questioned why she was speaking now. But Tamar addressed that too, saying silence had cost her too much already. She said staying quiet nearly broke her, and protecting people who wouldn't protect her was no longer an option. She made it clear she wasn't asking for sympathy. She was demanding accountability. Old interviews with Towanda and Michael began circulating, with fans scrutinizing their wording, their body language, their pauses. Moments where Tamar was dismissed as too much now felt strategic to some viewers. Fans pointed out how often Tamar's emotional reactions were highlighted, while others' actions went unexplored. The internet started asking whether Tamar's breakdowns were reactions to pressure rather than proof of instability. What made it even heavier was Tamar's tone when she spoke about family loyalty. She said betrayal hurts more when it's quiet. When nobody yells at you, nobody confronts you, they just move without you. She described feeling like she was always catching up to conversations that already happened, decisions already made, opinions already formed. According to her, that's when she realized she wasn't part of the inner circle anymore. The live ended abruptly, but the damage was already done. Blogs picked it up within minutes. Reaction videos exploded. Fans started choosing sides. Some demanded Towanda and Michael respond immediately. Others warned Tamar to protect herself legally. The silence from the other Braxtons only made the speculation louder. Because when accusations like this hit the air and nobody denies them right away, people assume there's truth somewhere underneath. And just when it seemed like that was the full reveal, Tamar posted a follow-up message that changed everything. She wrote that this was only the beginning and that there were receipts she'd been holding onto for years. She said she'd been advised to stay quiet before, but she was done letting other people define her story. She warned that the next chapter would explain how deep the coordination really went and who benefited the most from her being painted as the villain. That's when fans realized this was an event. This was a slow burn. Tamar wasn't dumping everything at once. She was peeling back layers, and if what she was hinting at was real, then the Braxton family narrative was about to be rewritten in real time. Because the biggest question hanging in the air wasn't just what happened. It was who knew, who stayed silent, and how long this had been happening right in front of everyone's eyes. As the dust from Tamar's first revelation settled, the silence from the rest of the family became the loudest sound in the room. No denials, no clarifications, no carefully worded PR statements. And in the world of celebrity families, silence is never neutral. Tamar noticed it too. Hours after her live ended, she went back online, not to scream, not to rant, but to connect dots, and that's when the situation turned from emotional to explosive. She began referencing moments fans thought were harmless at the time. Family meetings where decisions were already made. Conversations where she was told what was instead of being asked what should be. Tamar said she always felt like she was walking into scenes where the script had already been written, and she was expected to play the villain without knowing the plot. According to her, Towanda and Michael weren't just agreeing with each other by coincidence. They were aligned long before cameras rolled. Fans immediately went back into the archives. Old episodes, reunion specials, deleted scenes, and suddenly, moments that once felt awkward now looked intentional. Tamar being talked over. Tamar being labeled emotional. Tamar being told she was misreading situations that now, in hindsight, look painfully clear. Viewers pointed out how often Towanda would downplay Tamar's concerns, while Michael positioned himself as the calm voice of reason. Yet the outcomes almost always went against Tamar. Then Tamar addressed the elephant everyone was whispering about but afraid to say out loud. She didn't accuse anyone directly. She didn't use explicit language. But she said there were family truths that were intentionally blurred to protect certain images, and those lies came at her expense. She said when children, timelines, and responsibilities were discussed behind the scenes, she was deliberately kept out of the loop. Not because she didn't care, but because her knowing would complicate the story others wanted told. That's when social media truly lost control. Fans started speculating wildly, drawing conclusions, creating theories that spread faster than Tamar could possibly rein them in. Blogs ran headlines filled with question marks and ominous phrasing. Comment sections turned into full-blown investigations. Tamar responded cautiously, reminding people that she was sharing her experience, not inviting reckless assumptions. But she also made one thing clear. There were things the public had been misled about for years. She said what hurt the most wasn't just betrayal, but gaslighting. Being told she was crazy for feeling uncomfortable. Being told she was jealous for asking questions. being told she was unstable for refusing to play along. Tamar said every time she pushed back, the family narrative shifted to frame her as the problem, while the real issues were buried under respectability and silence. Insiders, anonymous, of course, started whispering to blogs that Tamar had tried to raise concerns privately multiple times, that she'd asked for honesty, that she'd requested sit-downs without cameras, and each time she was allegedly met with resistance, deflection, or spiritual guilt-tripping. According to these so-called insiders, Tamar was told not to tear the family apart, even though she claims the family had already quietly torn her out. What made it even messier was Ashlee's name popping up again and again online. Fans noticed Tamar never attacked Ashlee. Not once. In fact, Tamar went out of her way to say children should never be caught in adult decisions. That only fueled speculation further. Why protect one person so carefully while exposing others? To many viewers, that protection spoke volumes. Meanwhile, Towanda and Michael's continued silence started to feel strategic. Fans expected at least a vague denial. Instead, there was nothing. No, that's not true. No, we love Tamar. Nothing. And in the court of public opinion, that absence felt like confirmation to some and cowardice to others. Reaction channels exploded, dissecting every possible angle, every pause, every old interview. Tamar then dropped another chilling line during a late-night post. She said, "Some of y'all are finally seeing why I've always been the odd one out." She said being different wasn't the issue. Refusing to lie was. She hinted that there were documents, messages, and timelines she kept private out of love, but love without truth had nearly destroyed her. That's when fans realized this wasn't about one argument or one secret. This was about control, about who got to decide what the Braxton story looked like and who paid the price when they didn't fall in line. Tamar said she'd rather be called difficult than dishonest. She'd rather be alone than complicit. And just when people thought she'd said enough, Tamar teased what was coming next. She said the next chapter would explain how money, management, and media played a role in keeping certain narratives intact, and why speaking up now was no longer optional. She warned that once she said it, there would be no going back. The internet braced itself, because if part one was about emotional betrayal, this next layer sounded like it was about power. And when family, fame, and finances collide, the fallout is never clean. By the time Tamar returned for what she called her final clarification, the atmosphere around the family felt radioactive. This wasn't just a celebrity disagreement anymore. It had turned into a reckoning. She spoke slowly, carefully, like someone who had already counted the cost of telling the truth and decided it was worth it anyway. Tamar said she wasn't exposing secrets to hurt anyone. She was exposing patterns to save herself. She explained that for years, business decisions were being made in rooms she wasn't invited into, even when those decisions directly affected her career, her finances, and her mental health. Contracts were discussed without her input. Opportunities were filtered through people who claimed they were protecting the family, yet somehow the protection never extended to her. Tamar said she began to realize that control didn't always look like yelling or threats. Sometimes it looked like smiles, prayers, and being told to trust us. She revealed that money was the quiet weapon, not flashy theft or dramatic blow-ups, but subtle shifts, percentages that didn't add up, promises that changed after signatures were signed. She said every time she asked for transparency, she was labeled ungrateful. Every time she demanded clarity, she was accused of being divisive. And the more successful she became, the tighter the grip felt. According to Tamar, the message was always the same: fall in line or stand alone. Fans immediately connected this to her past interviews where she spoke about feeling isolated despite being surrounded by family. Those comments hit differently now. The internet replayed old clips where Tamar joked about being the black sheep, realizing it may not have been a joke at all. It may have been a warning. Tamar then addressed the emotional toll. She said the hardest part wasn't the money or the lies, but the rewriting of history. Moments where she was painted as unstable to discredit her concerns. Moments where her pain was reframed as drama. She said once a narrative sticks, it becomes almost impossible to fight without looking exactly like what they accuse you of being. And that's how silence wins. She made it clear she wasn't asking anyone to cancel her family. She wasn't asking for sides. She was asking for accountability. Tamar said love without honesty is manipulation, and loyalty that requires silence is not loyalty at all. She admitted she stayed quiet longer than she should have because she hoped things would change. They didn't. Behind the scenes, more so-called insiders began surfacing. Some claimed Tamar had walked away from deals that would have made her millions because the terms required her to keep quiet about family dynamics. Others said she'd been pressured to present a united front during moments when she was barely holding herself together. None of this was confirmed publicly, but the consistency of the stories only fueled the fire. Then Tamar said something that shifted the entire tone. She said healing didn't come from exposing others. It came from finally telling herself the truth. She said she no longer needed validation from people who benefited from her silence. And for the first time, she sounded lighter, calmer, resolved. Still, she warned that this wasn't the end. There were chapters she wasn't ready to open yet, not because she was scared, but because timing mattered. She said when the full story comes out, it won't be through anger. It'll be through receipts, clarity, and calm explanation. And that scared people more than shouting ever could. As for Towanda and Michael, their silence continued. No posts. No interviews, no indirect quotes. And the longer that silence stretched, the more fans speculated about what was happening behind closed doors. Were lawyers involved? Were negotiations happening? Or were they hoping the storm would pass? Tamar ended with a message that felt less like a threat and more like a boundary. She said she was done carrying narratives that weren't hers, done shrinking to keep others comfortable, done protecting images that cost her peace. She said the truth doesn't need defending, it just needs time, and with that she logged off. No dramatic exit, no tears, just a quiet finality that left the internet buzzing. Because when someone stops arguing and starts documenting, it usually means the real story hasn't even begun yet. If you've made it this far, understand this clearly. You're watching a story unfold in real time that is bigger than gossip, bigger than shade, and bigger than one viral moment. This is one of those rare situations where silence speaks louder than statements, and every missing response feels like another unanswered question. That's why you cannot look away now. If you have thoughts, theories, or reactions, drop them in the comments immediately. The conversation is happening whether you're part of it or not, and the loudest voices are shaping how this story is remembered. Your perspective matters more than ever right now. Hit the like button if you felt the tension shift. That one click tells the algorithm this story isn't done yet and pushes it to people who need to see it before the next revelation drops. And trust me, there will be more. Subscribe if you don't want to be caught off guard when the next chapter lands. Because when receipts start surfacing and silence turns into statements, it's going to move fast. No re-uploads. No rewinds, just real-time fallout. Turn on notifications so you're not the last one hearing what everyone else already knows. This isn't just drama, it's accountability, power, and truth colliding in public. Stay locked in. Stay watching, because when someone stops talking and starts documenting, the real story is only getting started.